You have said the existence of state is must.
Not only conflict, but also war.
Only to change the regime,
All institutions actually.
balance the national interest and the competition.
It has so many critics.
Let's debate on ideas.
Discarding, abolishing all is destructive.
Hello and welcome. This is our special edition, and in this edition we focus on the Ethiopian general election and how political parties are competing among each other. And my guest today is Dr.Geremew Huluka, President of Oromia State University, commonly known as OSU. And thank you, Doctor. Welcome to this special edition program.
Thank you for having me.
What can we learn from the past elections? This is the seventh election since the constitution is introduced in 1995. And what can we say about the past election and the upcoming election, especially after the reform has taken place in the country?
Thank you again. Election is one of the elements of democracy. So democracy itself is a process that has to be built through time. And when we come to African countries and particularly Ethiopian political history, it was very difficult and challenging to have a democratic process. But particularly after 1991 and of course after 1995, because 3 years transition was there, and after the constitution already declared that a fair free election should take place within every 5 years. So, as you have already mentioned, Ethiopia has been exercising elections 6 times, and this year's election 7 times. So, in my opinion, there are ups and downs. It's not like linear. It's not like we cannot argue that there are so many improvements, no. But ups and downs in a sense. Sometimes it seems very good, and sometimes it was worst. Considered as a good beginning when different parties and strong parties were involved, but at the end it led to violence. It was not a good lesson. So the 6th election was conducted under different circumstances that has its own unique character. Like it was considered as a high parade for transition or reform of the political reform of Ethiopia from the fall down of EPRDF and the emergence of prosperity parties. So different open-ups were considered and observed. Political open-ups, like so many parties that were even abroad for the last 30 and more years that cannot even join Ethiopia were joined to this country. And some political parties indulge themselves into not only conflict but also war. The Northern Ethiopia war was also during that time. Taking all these realities into consideration, a great lesson was learned from the 6th round election, because especially its nature of inclusiveness. The nature of inclusiveness, especially after the election, the ruling party or the party that won that election tried to accommodate opposition parties, even though they did not win election, but it made part of the government. So that's the new lesson that we learned from the 6th one, and we expect the 7th one to be more democratic, fair, and transparent and peaceful. Yeah.
You mean learning from the past experience?
Yeah, we learn from the past experience, both the shortcomings and the good
successes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And the other one is it election by itself only to change the regime?
The objective of election is to enhance the process of democracy and to build legitimacy for the governance, as well as to build trust between the public as well as the government. And again, of course, to ensure competition as well as alternatives public policy for the public. It's not for regime change.
What can we say about debating based on rules and principles and policy debates?
Yeah, you see, this is our political culture, the ugly side of our political system, by the way. Our political system is not based on idea. Rather, it is based on conflict, based on insultation, based on violence. So the focus is on regime change rather than having a good and best idea, best public policy, and putting on the table and taking to the political market so that the public may elect or choose. We focus on maybe force, mobilization, and movement, public movement. That's not good by this, but unfortunately this is the history and even currently what we have as a political culture. Yeah.
And even Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed usually says, let's debate on ideas, let's compete and win each other through round table. Yeah. And how do you evaluate this?
You see, this is what it has to be. This is a fact. From idea you generate policy. From strong policy your society will benefit. So if you take the most democratic country in quotation actually, even though each and every country has its own shortcomings, but relatively speaking some countries have developed political culture and democratic culture. We nowadays we are watching on different media, so that they are highly debating on policy, not violently, but based on rule of conducts. They debate, they thoroughly compete, and the winning idea will be given chance to rule, so that the society, the country as a whole, will be benefited from their policy. So idea is very important in politics, particularly when you are competing for governance. You see, the very purpose of political parties is to compete and to assume power, that's not, to become governor. So how do you govern after winning this election? Based on your idea, based on your policy. So the society is your decider. And the society has to be given chance to listen and clearly understand your policy rather than insulting others, rather than shouting, rather than blackmailing. You have to silently, democratically as well as ethically present what you have for your communities, for your citizens. So the idea is very important, as already usually said by our Prime Minister, as well as actually scientifically this is proved in other countries too. Yeah.
And the other is the matter of synergy. There are more than 100 political parties in Ethiopia. Do we have such divisive ideologies in Ethiopia?
Yeah, you see, actually I think about 48 of them yet announced their symbol for election. But as you have said, there are so many political parties in Ethiopia. Ethiopia does not deserve all these political parties. Even USA with 52 states, 53 states and more than 250 million population had two very giant political organizations, political parties. So why that's the case in Ethiopia? Because the idea yet we don't have solidified ideas. Rather than having a major idea based on national interest, we focused on hair-splitting style as well as on violence, so that we do have so many parties. But if our political culture changed into idea debate, we cannot have more than 5. more than 5.
Sure.
Even though I can, 2 is not suffice for maybe such a developing country. It's more, 5 political parties are sufficient for Ethiopia. But the problem is we are not focusing on policy rather than on our differences. We are not focusing on national interest rather than on very specific issues. So that's the case why we do have so much political organizations.
Dear viewers, we are discussing on Ethiopian general elections, the 7th general election, and Dr. Geremew Huluka is here with us to share idea to the general public and as well as the concerned stakeholders. Thank you, Doctor. And let us also discuss the issue of, economic importance in election. How other political parties either strengthening what is there or coming with another alternatives, best alternatives. What can you say on this?
Yeah, you see, this is still, we see different discrepancies between the ruling party. Of course, we cannot judge equally because the ruling party has opportunity to exercise its policy, whether it is good or not. Exercise this policy, and the society tests the result of the policy both positively and its shortcomings too. The opposition parties or the competing parties did not have this chance actually to exercise their policy. But in reality, it's obvious which kind of policy can be implemented in Ethiopia to bring good economic development and to bring political stability. So some of the political parties even don't have proper policy, let alone to assume that it can change Ethiopian problem overnight. Some are ambitious, very ambitious, and some do not have proper policy. And some focused on criticizing the ruling party only rather than advertising their own policy and convincing the community. So we do see all these differences due to our political problem. Therefore, in actual terms, the competing parties, including the ruling party itself, should be evaluated by the public based on their programs, based on their policies, based on the expected outcome of their policy. So even though the ruling party has actually both advantage but also disadvantage because it exercised its policy to the ground, that means for the success it has a good response, but for the shortcomings it has so many critics. So it's not only advantage to implement, but also it's a disadvantage because all the critics is due to the exercise that the ruling party tried to change into the reality. So this policy in election, the programs, the policies should be evaluated against the interest of the Ethiopian community, against the interest of the Ethiopian public, and about its implementability. Can it be implemented in having all the ups and downs of Ethiopian politics, having the diversity, having the challenges of Ethiopian economy, and focusing on the Ethiopian current national interest that are very sensitive, and so it has to be they have to be evaluated against all these issues.
And the other one is, Dr., institutional reform and institutional sustainability and strengthens are essential for the transformation of the nation, and how the political parties, building independent institutions.
You see, you are right. Institutional sustainability and continuity are very important in the socio-economic development of a given country. But unfortunately, Ethiopia lacks this. We don't have continuity. We don't have institutional sustainability. Look, when one governor comes, eradicates or abolishes the previous one and starts from zero, and again when the other comes, abolishes the last one and starts from zero. This is I call it the zero-sum game style of institutional building. It's only this current government, to be frank, by the way, as a result of this, what we call Madamar philosophy. So we shouldn't ignore all the pasts. We have to take some important things from the past and make to continue, and we have to add our own as a current generation, as well as we have to connect the future generation. So this way of thinking is connecting at least 3 generations: the past generation, the current generation, and the emerging generation. So currently the government is on a good start in thinking about continuity of institutions, as well as independence of institutions, independence of institutions, strengths of institutions. Even unless otherwise you build strong and independent institutions, you cannot have a strong government, you cannot have a strong country. So when institutions become very weak, the government becomes very weak, as well as the country becomes very weak, and of course exposed to the maybe external aggression and losing national interest. So whatever Ethiopian Airlines, telecommunication, and also others, they have to be strong enough. All institutions, actually, these are the examples and the symbols are on the good start. Otherwise, all institutions should be strengthened, should be built in the way they can continue from generation to generation, of course, with improvements.
What should be learned from this? I think it is a good lesson.
You see, that's why I mentioned, like if you take a USA, its constitution is more than, I think, 250 or more than that years. But they do have so many amendments. Constitution is not, it's neither Bible nor Quran.
Sure.
It is dynamic. It will be amended, but discarding, abolishing all is destructive. But you have to accommodate its dynamism based on generation question, based on the new interests, particularly currently due to the global and maybe highly dynamic. Maybe it may need frequent amendment. It should not be a point of conflict. Point of conflict. The constitution itself has its own way of amending. So otherwise, basic institutions like national defense, constitution, we have to be careful as a country. So we have to, by the way, we have to be reach on consensus on basic national interests. One of the basic national interests is the constitution, and military or defense, and the police, whatever. These are very important national interests.
And even how should the upcoming election campaigns, which is already underway, balance the national interest and the competition, political campaigns? How should they balance these two things?
As far as I'm concerned, any political party, whoever its name may be, and whatever its program may be, is secondary to the national interest, secondary to the country interest, secondary to Ethiopia. No political party.
You mean the existence of the states comes first?
No party is above the country. You see, look, if you take, like, for example, if we consider we do have 50 or 48 parties or 100 parties, can you tell me one party who can establish itself and compete election in Kenya?
No.
No. You see, this is the importance of the country. Can you tell me any party who can compete in USA? No. Where they are competing? In Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is their country. So they have to be subordinate themselves to the Ethiopia. Then you can compete maybe under this national interest. So the issue of national interest is the issue of survival of the country. So our debate should respect our unity. Our debate should respect our national interest. Our debate should respect our basic interests. Otherwise, you can debate, you can campaign, you can bring to your political market your ideologies, your policies. That's common. But we have to be careful with our national interest and sovereignty and other issues.
And the other one is, as we are concluding, maintaining peace is very important, whether it is pre-election, during election, and post-election. And how should all stakeholders and even all the citizens of the nation, the country, should contribute to maintain peace in the country? You have said the existence of state is must.
Yeah, you see, we as Ethiopians, we do have more than any nation on this planet. We do have, we know the importance of peace or the ugliness of war. We know the importance of peace or the ugliness of the danger of war or violence. Again, we know that during election there are different categories of parties who hiddenly expect this election for their own purposes, for their own end goals and objectives. Some parties genuinely want to compete and improve Ethiopian political culture. There are few parties which want to make this election, use this election to convert to violent. And of course, there are few organizations or parties who want to declare war based on this election. All these are very dangerous. So we have to be careful. Election is, I've said, secondary to the country. So country should come first. So as much as possible, we have to be careful, we have to be responsible, we have to follow the conduct of the board of election. So I think with this, we will be benefited from the election process.
My final question is, Doctor, as Ethiopia is, a country of youth, majority of the country's population is youth, and how all political parties, the ruling and the competing parties, consider the youth, the generation that is the majority of the population, especially in terms of creating job, because joblessness is one of the problems that we do have for a long period of time.
Yeah, unemployment issue is a common issue in all countries, and during election in almost all countries challenged with unemployment, how to treat the unemployment issue. And of course it is a must. It should be, it is the responsibility of any government or ruling party, and the one who is assuming competing for election, they have to clearly show how to do with the unemployment of youth, whatever. So you see, they have to be clearly show how to solve the very complicated and the challenging unemployment issue of this country. Whether the ruling party is trying, as I've said, it has some exercises with its own shortcomings and challenges, but the other competing parties, rather than confusing and maybe clearing or declaring false promises, they have to be clearly, and they have to also be careful that not to cheat the youth. They have to be clearly show how to solve this unemployment issue for the youth, and even how to encourage the youth to be their political party, their party member, and how to, even some of the parties do not want the youth to become the leaders. You see, so how to include the youth towards the leadership of the parties, the top level of the parties. They have to be, because this country is, as you have said, the population, majority of the population is youth. So therefore, it has to be clear that how to include youths into their political leadership.
And finally, if you have any message to my audience, you're welcome.
This election should be peaceful, both during the process, pre-election, during the process, as well as during after the result. So as Ethiopians, let us forget about the winner-loser approach, rather than, if we peacefully conduct this election, Ethiopia will win. And if we fail, Ethiopia will fail. That's my final.
Dr. Geremew Huluka, thank you very much for your insights and for your time as well.
Thank you. Too.
Really appreciate.
I appreciate you too.
Dear viewers, this is all about our discussion, and I'm sure from this discussion you can take some very important pointers. And this is not the end program about the election. We will come up with other episodes, and till next edition, goodbye.